Charles Dickens and the Invention of Christmas as we know it. Charles Dickens has probably had more influence on the way that we celebrate Christmas today than any other single individual. For Dickens, Christmas symbolizes the only way in which the world can be improved, by the exercise of charity. Who was Charles Dickens? Charles Dickens, born in 1812 and died in 1870, is considered the greatest English storyteller of the Victorian period. He enjoyed a wide popularity, his work appealing to the simple and to the sophisticated likewise. The range, compassion, and intelligence of his view of society and its shortcomings enriched his novels and made him one of the great forces in the 19th century literature. His many volumes include works such as Oliver Twist, written in 1838, A Christmas Carol in 1843, David Copperfield in 1850, Great Expectations in 1861, among others. In addition, he worked as a journalist, writing numerous items on political and social affairs. Charles Dickens' father, a clerk, was well paid, but his failings often brought the family trouble. In 1824, Charles was withdrawn from school and did manual factory work, and his father went to prison for that. Those shocks deeply affected Charles. After a brief return to the classroom, his schooling ended at age 15. Dickens lived in the Victorian era. In British history, the period between approximately 1820 and 1914, corresponding roughly to the period of Queen Victoria's reign, which was between 1837 and 1901. The period was marked by a class-based society, a growing state and economy, and Britain's status as the most powerful empire in the world. The secret of Dickens' popularity lies in an immense vitality, comparable to Shakespeare's, which swirls around his creations and creates a Dickensian world, which, if does not resemble the real world, at least has its own logic, its own laws, and its own special atmosphere. Dickens' characters are really humorous in the sense that they are all constructed with exaggerations of human characteristics to the point of caricature. The world created by Dickens is mainly a kind of nightmare London of chop houses, prisons, lawyers' offices, and taverns, mostly dark, foggy, and cold, but very much alive. He's concerned with the problems of crime and poverty, but he does not seem to believe that matters can be improved by legislation or reform movements. Everything depends on the individual. If he has a doctrine, it is one of love. Invention of Christmas. At the beginning of the Victorian period, the celebration of Christmas was in decline. The Industrial Revolution, in full swing in Dickens' time, allowed workers little time for the celebration of Christmas. However, a revival of Christmas traditions was promoted throughout the Victorian era. Prince Albert brought the German custom of decorating the Christmas tree to England. The singing of Christmas carols, which had all but disappeared at the turn of the century, began to thrive again, and the first Christmas card appeared in the 1840s. But it was the Christmas stories of Dickens, particularly his 1843 masterpiece, A Christmas Carol, that rekindled the joy of Christmas in Britain and America. Charles Dickens' holiday story, A Christmas Carol, has been warming hearts and promoting the spirit of charitable goodwill since it was first published a few days before Christmas in 1843. In telling the tale of Ebenezer Scrooge's transformation from a misanthropic miser to a man filled with the joy and generosity of Christmas, Dickens created a timeless masterpiece that has lived on and become as much a part of the holiday traditions. Today, after more than 170 years, A Christmas Carol continues to be relevant, sending a message that cuts through the materialistic trappings of the season and gets to the heart and soul of the holidays. Dickens describes the holiday as a good time, a kind, forgiving, charitable, pleasant time. The only time I know of in the long calendar of the year when men and women seem by one consent to open their shut-up hearts freely. This was part of what Dickens described for the rest of his life as the carol philosophy. Charles Dickens' name had become so synonymous with Christmas that on hearing of his death in 1870, a little costermonger's girl in London asked, "Mr. Dickens dead? Then will Father Christmas die too? The story plot. Ebenezer Scrooge is a penny-pinching miser in the first degree. He cares nothing for the people around him, and mankind exists only for the money that can be made through exploitation and intimidation. He particularly hates Christmas, which he views as a time for finding yourself a year older and not an hour richer. Scrooge is visited on Christmas Eve by the ghost of his former partner Jacob Marley, who died 7 Christmas Eves ago. Marley, as miser as Scrooge, is suffering the consequences in the afterlife and hopes to help Scrooge avoid his fate. He tells Scrooge that he'll be haunted by 3 spirits. These 3 spirits, the ghosts of Christmas past, present, and future, succeed in showing Scrooge the error of his ways. His glorious reformation complete, Christmas morning finds Scrooge sending a Christmas turkey to his long-suffering clerk, Bob Cratchit, and spending Christmas Day in the company of his nephew, Fred, whom he had earlier rejected. Scrooge's newfound benevolence continues as he raises Cratchit's salary and promises to assist his family, which includes Bob's disabled son, Tiny Tim. In the end, Dickens reports that Scrooge became as good a friend, as good a master, and as good a man as the good old city knew. A classic that lives on. From the silent film to the latest contemporary computer-animated feature film, A Christmas Carol has been presented in a number of different media over the decades. Besides the Christmas stories that are biblical in origin, Charles Dickens' 1843 classic telling of A Christmas Carol remains one of the longest-running, most adapted, and most relevant holiday tales to date. A Christmas Carol was a great popular and critical success and was adapted for the theater within months of publication. From 1843 until his death in 1870, Dickens presented dozens of public readings of A Christmas Carol that were immensely popular not only in England, but also in America. Since then, there have been countless adaptations of the story, for the stage, radio, movies, television, and even an opera. Some of these adaptations were more faithful to Dickens' original story than others, and some were, of course, more successful than others. The most recent one, Disney's digital 3D version, A Christmas Carol from 2009, has Jim Carrey starring as Scrooge and was directed by Robert Zemeckis. The film successfully recreates many of the details of Dickens' London of the 1840s and features stunning and scary special effects that brilliantly bring to life the imaginative ghost story that Dickens created. Having our hearts warmed and filled with Dickens' spirit of goodwill, we wish you and your loved ones a very blessed and Merry Christmas.